Do you ever notice that how you feel about yourself completely depends on the results you have? In other words, your self-worth is tied to your results. On good days when things are moving, clients are winning, deals are going through, you feel unstoppable, confident, and you can take over the world. But on bad days, you lost a client, a deal didn't go through as expected, suddenly you feel behind. You doubt yourself, you get harsh, this inner voice gets louder and louder. And all of that happens because unconsciously your self-worth is tied to your results. And if you're honest with yourself, this is exhausting. For a long time, that was me. When I was winning, I felt on top of the world. When I wasn't, I questioned everything. My confidence increased with fast results and crashed as fast as results disappeared. And the worst part, it was not even the bad results. It was actually my reaction that affected my execution. Because on those days where I felt bad about myself, I tried to push harder, listen to some motivational quotes, but it never really worked. In fact, it made things worse. And this doesn't just happen to me or to you. After coaching over 150 entrepreneurs and doing more than 1,500 hours of one-on-one coaching, this is by far the most common pattern I saw. Highly driven people, ambitious, capable, but emotionally unstable. Because operating from a place where your self-worth is tied to results is exhausting. And then I had a realization that changed everything. Results don't create your self-worth. They simply activate a belief that was already there. And once you see that, you start to understand something most high achievers don't understand. Why tying your self-worth to results guarantees inconsistency. Why it quietly creates self-sabotage. And why even successful people are deeply unstable. If you stay till the end of this video, you'll understand why this pattern happens in the first place, the hidden consequences nobody talks about, and how to separate your self-worth with your results without killing your ambition. If you ever felt like you know what to do but you can't follow through consistently because of how you felt, you don't want to skip this. Here's the part that most people get wrong. Tying your self-worth to results is not arrogance. It's not ego, and it's definitely not narcissism. It's what I call conditional identity. At some point, usually early in life, you learn that being valued came from doing well, getting good grades, being responsible, being an achiever, and slowly, without you realizing it, your nervous system made a big association. Results equal safety, performance equals value, achievement equal love or respect. So you didn't just want to succeed, you needed to. And this is a big difference. Because success wasn't just about growth, it was about feeling good about yourself. And this is why high achievers are very susceptible to this pattern. You're disciplined, you're ambitious, you hold high standards to yourself, but underneath that drive, there's often a quiet belief running in the background. If I'm not progressing, I'm falling behind. If I'm not producing, I'm not enough. So results stop being feedbacks. They become emotional proof of value. A good week doesn't just mean good numbers. It means relief, confidence, self-respect. And a bad week doesn't just mean slower progress. It means self-attack, doubt, and guilt. That's why the feeling of feeling behind never really goes away. Because no results is never enough to stabilize your identity. There's always another goal, another milestone, another number that needs to be hit. And the moment results slow down, the inner pressure comes back online. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because your sense of worth was never unconditional to begin with. And this is the part most people miss. This pattern doesn't make you lazy. It makes you hyper vigilant. Always monitoring, always measuring, always checking if you're doing good enough, which feels productive, till you realize what it's actually costing you. Here's what happens when your result is tied to your self-worth. The moment results matter emotionally, your nervous system goes into protection mode. Now every outcome feels like a high stake. A win isn't just a win, it's a relief. A loss isn't just feedback, it's a threat. And that's why most people have the fear of failure. And when your system perceives threat, it doesn't optimize for growth. It optimizes for safety. That's when emotional regulation breaks down. Pressure increases, your focus narrows, your body stays tense. You start operating from urgency, not clarity. This is where self-sabotage begins quietly. For some people, it shows up as avoidance. You delay the thing that matters most, you procrastinate, you overthink, not because you don't care, but because failing would feel like a judgment on who you are. For others, it shows up as overforcing. You push harder, you overwork, you try to control everything, you ignore signals from your body until burnout hits. And then there's the most confusing thing ever, fear of success. And that's a big one. Because if worth is tied to results, success raises the bar. More expectations, more pressure, more responsibility. So part of you wants to grow and another part pulls the brakes. That's why execution collapses when it matters most. Not at the beginning, not when things are easy, when stakes rise. When results actually start to matter. And here's the paradox most achievers miss. The harder you try to prove your worth, the harder it becomes to perform consistently. Because execution requires openness, focus, emotional stability, and you can't access that when your identity feels under threat. This is why willpower doesn't fix it. This is why eventually discipline fails. Because the issue was never about the effort. It was the emotional cost attached to the outcome. And once you see this, the real question becomes, if tying your worth to results is the problem, what does healthy detachment actually look like? Because most people completely misunderstand this part. Quick notes before we continue. If this pattern hits home and you want to dive deeper, I'm hosting a free training of an hour and a half where we go much deeper into self-sabotage, consistency, and peak performance, and what separates someone that is failing in business and someone that is succeeding in terms of their mindset. All of that is completely free, but spots are limited. Click the link down below and register. So this is where a lot of people get stuck. At some point, you probably heard advice like, just detach from the outcome, all is meant to be, stop caring so much about the results, you're already doing enough. And if you're ambitious, that advice feels wrong. Because to you, detachment sounds like losing drive, becoming passive, lowering standards, settling, so you reject it. And honestly, that makes total sense. But here's the problem. Most people misunderstand what detachment actually means. Detachment does not mean that you stop caring about your results. It means you stop using results to define your self-worth. There's a big difference between ambition and attachment. Ambition says, I want to grow, I want to improve, I want to build. Attachment says, if this works, I'm enough, I'll feel important. If this fails, I'm not. That's the part that creates instability. Because when you're attached, results become very heavy. Every action feels loaded. Every decision feels risky. Every outcome feels personal. That weight makes execution harder, not easier. Detachment removes that weight. Not the goal, not the standard, but the emotional weight. That's why the best performers look calm under pressure. Not because they don't care, but because their identity isn't on the line. They can miss a shot and stay calm, have a bad week and stay grounded, get feedback without actually really collapsing. Results become information, not verdicts. Because when you're not trying to prove your worth, your nervous system relaxes, your thinking opens up, your actions become precise, your consistency improves. And that's what actually creates real momentum. So the goal isn't to care less, the goal is to care cleanly. And once you understand that, the next question becomes very practical. If self-worth shouldn't fluctuate with results, what do you anchor it with instead? Because that's the real shift. Here's the shift most people never make. If your self-worth shouldn't come from the results, it has to be anchored somewhere else. And no, that doesn't mean pretending results don't matter. It means separating who you are from what you produce. Stable self-worth isn't built on outcomes. It's built on values, standards, and behavior. Things you control, showing up when it's uncomfortable, doing the work even when motivation is low, acting in alignment with who you want to become. That's where real confidence comes from. Not from winning, but from self-trust. When you know, I do what I'll say I'll do, I can handle discomfort. I don't abandon myself on bad days. Your nervous system settles because your worth is no longer fragile. This is what changes execution. You stop chasing validation. You stop overreacting to feedback. You stop spiraling after setbacks. Not because results don't matter, but because they no longer affect your values. You become someone who executes regardless of your emotional instability. Good day or bad day, win or loss, momentum or slow down. And that's where identity shifts from I'm only good when I perform and work to I'm solid, so things work more often. You see the difference? This is the difference between needing results to feel worthy and letting results follow a stable sense of self. And once this clicks, execution stops feeling like self-protection. It becomes expression. So if there's one thing you can't take from all this video, is that results are feedback, not your identity. You don't lose your worth on bad days, and you don't suddenly gain it on good ones. When your self-worth is stable, your execution becomes stable too. And that's where real growth happens. So if you want to dive deeper into the mindset behind peak performance and execution to double your income by shifting your identity, I'm hosting a free live training exploring all of that in depth. So all you have to do is just click the link below, register, and I'll see you there. But be quick because spots are limited. And I also decided to do a challenge with myself and to post every single week a YouTube video. So if you would love to explore more about the mindset behind peak performance, how to reach your full potential, how to use your mind as your best friend, not something that is against you, that will slow your progress and your results, all you have to do is just subscribe, put the notification on so you'll be the first to know when I upload the video. And thank you again for watching. It was a pleasure sharing this moment with you. I'll see you all in the next one.